The very area where you are struggling the most is where God wants to reveal himself the most in your life. Hello everyone and welcome to Tahari Talks, the channel. That feels so wild to say, but so good to say all at once. If you're new to who I am as a person, then welcome. I'm gonna get into what I do, who I am, and how it all came about. If you migrated over from another place, or if you've been rocking with me for a long time, thank you so much for continuing on this journey with me. As you know, Tahari Talks started off as a series on our main channel. But I really felt, and I was being led, and I kept receiving sign after sign after sign that Tahari Talks needed its own home. Thus, we have the channel Tahari Talks. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for, again, being part of this journey. Before we go any further, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss a beat and so that you don't miss any of the videos. On this channel, we'll be getting into all things wellness, spiritual health, mental health, talking about day-to-day things, unpacking things that are going on in the world. We will be talking about and getting into it all. And I'm so excited to have a safe space to do that in. And I hope that you're excited as well, because we're going to be getting into it just how we were getting into it on Tahari Talks series. We're going to dive even deeper on Tahari Talks, the channel. Starting over can feel super scary, but when you know who sent you and whose you are, it's like, all right, I gotta do it. I put off making this switch, making this transition. I kept receiving sign after sign that it was just time. So I'm so excited to get this started. Who am I? My name is Briana Tahari. My background is in psychology, and then I also received some education in clinical mental health. I stepped away from the whole therapy industry for about 7 years while I pursued cosmetology and maintained that career. And God told me that it was time to stop right before I had my son in 2023. And so I stepped away from that. And I always said that I would return to the counseling realm in some way, shape, or form that was unorthodox. And that led me here. I am now a certified life coach, and I'm here to share everything that God has been downloading onto me to share with the viewers who tune into my channel. In addition to counseling and mental health, I am a creative. If you're new to Tahari Talks and to my channel and you notice that the episodes before this, it felt like I wasn't really greeting you guys, it's because I migrated those episodes over from my other channel. I didn't want the viewers of Tahari Talks to miss out on that content because it is good content, but I had to chop and screw it so that it made sense for this channel. But now we here, baby. It's live direct, it's all making sense, and it's all coming together. As far as coaching sessions and coaching services, those will be rolled out later on this year, and I'm super excited to get into that. But for right now, this is where we will be meeting up, right here on this screen, whatever screen you're watching on. This is it. So enough about me, let's get into this topic. In this episode, I want to talk about God using the very thing or things that you feel are inadequate. So before we get into the inadequacies, let's talk about this whole idea of being used by God. A lot of people might say, God is going to use the things that I feel inadequate about for what? Or how is he going to use me? What does it even mean to be used by him? And the answer for what is plain and simple. It's for your good, it's for your passion, for your purposes, for your relationships, the ways that you will be able to connect with people, the ways that you will be able to bring people to God, most importantly for your calling, ultimately for your life's walk. Every little thing that you feel is inadequate, or the reasons why you feel like you shouldn't be used, those are the very things that God is like, no, don't store those away. Those are the things that I want to use. Those are the things that I don't even want you to polish up. It's good as it is. Mankind is always on the search for, what is my passion? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing in this lifetime? And while those questions can seem scary and it can seem like a very mysterious topic, usually the answers are right in front of us. They're hidden in the things that we feel like are inadequate. They're hidden in the things that we feel like have no purpose in our ways. They're hidden in the everydays. They're hidden in our inclinations. They're hidden in what we like to do. They're hidden in our fears. They're hidden in our triggers and traumas. And a lot of times they're not hidden at all because they're in plain sight. There's this idea that when you experience trauma and when you experience things that society may deem unacceptable, that those are things that can't be used for God's glory and for your purpose. And that's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie, because those are the very things that we should be putting a highlight on, because they will be used. We're asking ourselves, what is my passion and purpose? When really the question should be, what are the things that I wish I could change about myself? What is the one thing that would terrify me if I had to make a passion and purpose and career out of that thing? And those answers are typically beyond the safety of your comfort zones and in the discomfort of the unknown. If you tune into Tahari Talks when it was a series, then you know that I don't get into y'all's business without first getting into my own. So I'll speak for myself, and maybe you can resonate with the things that I'm about to share. So for me personally, growing up, the idea of being in front of audiences terrified me. I was just on the phone with my sister the other day, and I was telling her how I was in a drama class, and our assignment at the end of the year was to participate in a school play. And I was so anxious and so terrified to perform in front of the rest of the school that I acted like I was sick. I told the teacher I was sick and that I couldn't perform in the play. And the alternate assignment, if you weren't going to do the play, was that you had to write at least a 10-page play with illustrations to go along with the play. So obviously that's way more work than showing up and saying your 5 lines and keeping it moving. But I was so committed to the fact that I could not show up and perform for people that I was willing to do whatever. 10 pages, illustrations, whatever you want me to do, I'm going to do just that. And she was laughing because she was like, I never knew that about you. Like, I loved that class. I loved doing that. And I was like, no, I was so committed to not doing it that I was willing to hide in the comfort of, I can draw these pictures, I can write these words, but I am not getting out there and speaking in front of my peers. But then fast forward and I'm on Beyonce's internet talking to people about what their passion and purpose is and about moving past their fears. Little did I know, all I had to do was lean in and I would find what ultimately I was being led to do. Another example, my parents used to take me to shoots in the industry to try and do like kid modeling, and I used to go and show my behind, crying, all the things, like did not want to be there. And now it's like, girl, you were getting started with doing what you were ultimately going to be doing in the long run if you had just leaned in. Kid me had no idea. Stepping into intermediate, as far as how deep we're going into these examples, I used to feel like my voice got lost in a room full of people, and I still do. Like, I'm normally not the loudest in the room. I'm very soft spoken, but when I do speak, I'm saying something, and I don't speak just to fill space. I speak when I feel that there's something to be said. And so a lot of times I'll be in a room and I feel like I'm not being heard or my voice doesn't matter. And that's a trick of the enemy to try and make me feel like anything that I've had to say, whether it came from God or not, was never going to be important. When really, if I lean in, I would have discovered earlier that my voice does matter and what I have to say indeed is important and indeed will free people if I lean into the gift in the areas that I feel inadequate in. Taking it another step deeper, one area where I've always struggled is articulation of speech and articulation of my thoughts. In my mind, it will make perfect sense. I can come up with a Shakespeare level idea of what I'm trying to convey, but there's a disconnect for me whenever it's going from trying to convey what I'm thinking into my words, and I'll either stumble on my words or I'm stuck in the moment, or what I'm saying comes out elementary compared to the way that I thought it up. And I used to run from that and just say, okay, well, I'm just not going to speak. But that's the very thing that I have to lean into in order to go where God is calling me. Even to the point where I've asked myself, is this a thing that is anxiety induced? Like, am I anxious and that's why I'm having trouble articulating what I'm trying to convey? Is it a thing that I'm so emotionally aware that it makes me careful to speak certain thoughts depending on the energy that I'm being surrounded by? Even to the point where I'm like, do I have a brain tumor? What is going on? Got an MRI to make sure that everything was okay in my mind, because I'm like, why am I having such trouble articulating my thoughts? And then God kept revealing to me with time that you're having trouble in this area because that is where you are going to walk in your purpose. That is where you are going to excel in your passion area. That is the way that you will bring people to me, and that is the way that people will know me through you. This is how I will use you as a vessel, but you have to push through those feelings of I'm inadequate, why use me, why choose me? Because if you don't, then you'll never get to the point of I can use you, because I know that you're willing to push past those areas that you feel uncomfortable in, those areas that you feel inadequate in order to let me use you. We may get into this in another episode, but even going back to trauma that I've experienced in my childhood and being violated in ways that I have not shared publicly, and the setup of it down to the demographics of the way that it happened, I could have easily drawn back and said, hey, because I was violated by this type of person, I don't want to speak to this type of person in my career. But I'm slowly learning that God is peeling back the layers and showing me you had to go through this so that you would relate to this type of person. You had to go through this so that you would be able to get in the field and understand on a personal level what somebody is telling you that they've experienced, and know those feelings and know how it feels feels to repress certain traumas until adulthood, and they're coming back and having to do the work and remove those layers with my help so that you can be healed and that you can be whole. The very area where you are struggling the most is where God wants to reveal himself the most in your life. If we never struggled, if we were able to get up and do everything on our own, and we were able to look up a self-help book or a podcast or a sermon about it, then God would not be God. If we had everything figured out, then God would not be able to show himself in us and through us. He wouldn't be able to work certain things and be able to say, I brought you here, I did that. We would feel like we were self-made in everything that we did. If we did not have to struggle through our feelings of inadequacy, if we did not have to struggle through, I am not okay in this, I don't feel like I am enough in this area, I don't feel like I am competent in this area, and God, I need your help, then we would accomplish and do some more and feel like we did it through our own strength and not through God's grace. I remember hearing a sermon, the preacher was saying the moment that you have it all figured out is when God ceases being God. And that's never going to happen, because God will always be exactly who he is. And so we experience these things in life and we feel shame around them, around the thoughts that we have. I'm not good enough because I experienced suicidal ideation, or I'm not good enough because the molestation happened to me, or I'm not good enough because I don't know how to articulate my thoughts effortlessly, or I'm insecure about my weight or about my appearance, so I'm not good enough. When really those are the things where God is trying to use us to keep us humble, to allow us to connect with his people, and to give him the glory in the end. When you feel like I could never do insert whatever your it is because of whatever your inadequacy is, that's exactly when you should be doing that thing. The people who run from it are the ones who likely are supposed to be in the room. If you think about biblical reference, all throughout the Bible, God, he used imperfect people, and their imperfections were the reason why he used them. I trust you because of the inadequacies. Abraham, I trust you because you're old. I trust you although you're old. Elijah was suicidal, and God still trusted and used him. Joseph was abused. God still trusted and used him. Job went bankrupt. God still trusted and used him. Moses had a speech problem. And God used him to part the Red Sea and bring his people into freedom. Gideon struggled with fear. God still used him. Rahab was a prostitute, and God still used her. Imagine these people in the Bible saying, God, no, you can't use me. Don't put me in that book. Don't use me to make my mark in history because I went bankrupt, because I'm too old, because I'm too fearful, because I'm too this, that, and the third. It's not enough of an excuse, because God knew those things about you when he made you. He knew you were going to get to this point. He knew that there was something on the other side that he needed to accomplish and could only accomplish through you, or only wanted to accomplish through you. And he knew that you will struggle with those feelings of I'm inadequate, but he knew that that's the reason why you would submit to him and ask him for help in those areas, because who else would see you through, and who else would help you develop those things, and who else would help you accept those inadequacies so that you could carry out your passion and fulfill your purpose in the earth. Another way to really know that God is using you in the areas of your inadequacies is when you have attacks in the area of your inadequacies. So I spoke a little earlier about feeling inadequate about my voice and feeling inadequate about my speech. Down to the physical, there were 2 times in my life that the enemy tried to attack my voice area. So as a child, I was maybe 9 years old, and I was at my grandmother's house joking and laughing with my cousins, eating a grape, and I choked on it to the point where I thought, like, I remember vividly thinking, I'm dying right now. Like, I'm not gonna see my parents anymore. I'm not gonna see my siblings anymore. Like, this is the point where it ends. And luckily, my grandfather was able to save my life. In that moment, the enemy wanted to make it so that I could never use my voice again. Fast forward, after I had my son, I'm going through postpartum. And if you remember earlier when I was doing introductions, I was talking about how I knew that God told me it was time to step away from the salon chair after having my son. The enemy knew that it was going to be time for me to walk into my purpose fully. And I was on the phone with my sister. I was sitting on the couch and I was drinking some water, drinking a bottle of water, something that I do all the time, every day. And even the conversation that we were having was about something spiritual. So it was crazy that the timing of it happened the way it did. And I go to drink my water, and I choked to the point where I could not breathe. Same exact situation in another way. And I literally was crying after I caught my breath again, saying to my husband, like, I thought I was dying. I remember looking at my children on the other side of the room and thinking, I'm never gonna see them. Like, they're gonna have to be raised without a mother because I'm going out. What are the odds that the 2 times specifically in this life where I thought I was dying, it was through the attack of my vocal cords, through the attack of my throat, through the attack of the very thing that God was going to use later in my life to push me into my purpose. That's not happenstance. There are times where I've been in connection with people, praying for them, and I go to sleep and I wake up the next day and my throat is sore, cannot speak. So those attacks happen in the spiritual, they happen in the natural, and they also happen in the mind to make you feel like, oh, you can never be a speaker. You can never be on a stage. You sound crazy when you talk. Your voice isn't strong enough. It's not loud enough. Whatever it is, you were abused. There's no way that you could be a wife. There's no way that you could be a mother. All you're going to do is abuse your children. And those are all lies of the enemy. You are meant to acquire every single thing that God has for you, but you only can do so if you give your inadequacies to Him and keep pressing forward past your inadequacies to do exactly what God has called you to. The thing about it is, and I've mentioned this in another Tahari Talks episode, is if God called you to do a thing, be a thing, say a thing, act in a role, He is not going to stop until that need is met and until that purpose is fulfilled. And you can make it easy and just be obedient and answer with a yes and do what you have to do and push past every insecurity to fulfill that purpose and fulfill that role. Or you could keep running. And when you keep running, it makes it harder and harder and harder, because the beautiful thing that cannot feel so beautiful when you're in the moment is that God is a persistent God, and He's going to make sure His words are yea and amen. He's going to make sure that if He said it, that it is fulfilled and that it comes through. So your running and His attempts at pulling you back in are going to feel harder and harder, harsher and harsher, because the extremes that He's willing to go through are only going to become greater and greater. So you may say, God, why is it that every time I try to get away, I keep ending up in the same spot? Because I'm trying to teach you the same lesson. I'm trying to get you in the same place. Why is it that every single time I try to go and work a corporate job, I'm pulled right back into this area of having lack and being without and being in debt? Because I didn't call you to work that job. I called you to be an entrepreneur, and I called you to be here. Or why is it that every time I try to move to California, I keep finding my way stuck back in Texas? Because I called you to Texas in this season. I didn't call you to California. Wherever God has you, whatever He wants you to be doing in the season that He wants you to do it, so it will be. By no means in this talk am I ever saying that you should stop seeking self-development. But what I am saying is that there should never be this idea that you have to wait to arrive at some imaginary level of imperfection to do what you know that you've been called to do. When I lose 5 pounds, I'll start walking out my purpose. When I take this class, I'll start walking out my purpose. When I get this degree, when I have this baby, when I become a wife, whenever I get the divorce, whenever I make the move, that's when I will start walking out purpose. No, if it's time to do it, then that means that you have everything you need to do it. One thing that I've been saying constantly, it came to me when I was praying and meditating a couple of weeks ago, and I've just been repeating it and saying it to people when they come to me and they're experiencing different challenges, is that everything that you need, you already have. Everything that you want is on its way. Everything I need, I already have. Everything I want is on its way. There is nothing that you need to carry out what God wants you to carry out in this season that you don't already have in your possession or in your wheelhouse to possess. You already have all the knowledge and wisdom that you need. You already have all the material things that you need. Maybe not that you want, but that you need is all there. And if it's not, then you have the means to go and get it. Everything that you need. Everything that you need. I cannot stress that enough. Every single thing that you need, you already have. Sure, there are plenty of things that I want that I do not have right now. Some may deem them a need in their personal life, but I know that anything that I want is on the way, and everything that I need, I already have. Moral of the story, moral of the talk is that everything that you're running from, everything that you feel like are the reasons why you don't deserve those things that you know that you truly want, the things that your spirit feels led to and pulled by, those are the very things that you have to either lean into or push past, because A, they will not get in the way of what God is trying to do through you, or they will be used to do what God is trying to do through you. Those are really the only 2 outcomes. Either you need to push past that thing, or you need to embrace that thing and carry it on the run while you keep in stride and towards purpose and towards your calling, because you're going to need it. You're going to put it in the toolbox rather than stowing it away as baggage. I like that analogy. There are a lot of things that we feel like we have to tow because it's heavy, it's baggage, and it won't be used. But God wastes nothing. Everything that you've experienced thus far in your life is going to be used for His glory. And it's only when we change and shift our mindsets from seeing it as baggage and mess and debris, and instead seeing it as tools that we can use in our arsenal, that we will be able to carry out purpose. That situation that I dealt with was hard, but it taught me resilience, and I'm going to need resilience for my journey ahead. That situation was hard and it broke my heart, but it taught me how to put me first, and I'm going to need to put me first in the area that I'm going. Being broken, having nothing was hard, but it taught me how to be resourceful, and I'm going to need to be resourceful in the way that I'm going, in the areas that I'm taking. Dealing with being violated was hard, but I'm going to come into contact with many women and children and people that need to know how I got through it so that I can help them through something similar, if not the very same thing. The romantic breakup, the friendship breakup was hard, and it took me under, and the depression that came about from it was hard, but it showed me how to pick myself up. It showed me how to have genuine joy, and it showed me how to trust myself to start again. It showed me how to choose myself. It showed me how to maintain confidence. It showed me how to see myself how God sees me. And so meditate on those things. What are the things that you feel like are inadequate, and how can you instead see those things as the very things that God will use in order to carry out His will in your life? We could keep going all night long on this topic, but I really do hope that something that was said during our time together was beneficial to you. If so, leave it in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this talk, as well as leave some ideas below as far as what topics that you would like me to cover in future Tahari Talks episodes. If you're not new here, then you know we like to close out with a word of prayer, and then we're going to keep it moving. So God, I thank you for every single person that has taken the time to view this video. Thank you for bringing them to this moment. Thank you for bringing them to the experience. Thank you for bringing them across this information and allowing them to hear the very things that you wanted and needed them to hear in this moment, in this day. I thank you for their life. I thank you for their journey. I thank you for every inadequacy that you have allowed them to take on throughout this lifetime up until this point. Penetrate their mind, penetrate their heart, so that they can see that you have purposed them, you have purposed their life, you have purposed every single experience for your glory. Give them peace in every transition that they are experiencing. Give them courage to move forward and pursue the purpose and the will that you have for their lives, God. God, we cancel every trick of the enemy that will make your children feel like they cannot go on. We cancel every thought and feeling of fear, every thought and feeling of I am not enough, every thought and feeling of I do not belong, every thought and feeling of I do not deserve. God, fortify them with the strength that they need to move on and carry out everything that you have sent them here to execute. And we thank you in advance for what you're about to do in their lives. We thank you for what you've done this far, and we thank you for just being God in our life and allowing us to have access to you in this way. And it is in your name we do pray. Amen. Once again, I truly hope that something that was said during this time is beneficial for you. If so, feel free to share this video with a friend that you know would benefit from it as well. I cannot wait to see you all in future Tahari Talks episodes. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't by now. If you made it this far into the video, you are a real one and you're gang now. So I hope you love it here. I'll see you all next time. Later.